What's up, everybody? Just want to take a quick second and let people know that I am self-supported. I now put all of my episodes on Substack for paid subscribers. I put them up early, and then 24 hours later, I release them to the public on all my platforms. I also have Venmo, PayPal, Cash App, Buy Me a Coffee, Zelle, a PO Box, and I don't think Locals, Patreon. And all of the links are in the show notes of every single episode I put out. So look forward to continuing to provide great conversations. And thank you all for your continued support. Kevork, my friend, good to see you. I know I can't. Well, I don't want to say I know. I can't imagine how busy you are with everything going on. We were just talking offline about anything speaking about in relation to intelligence following us or aware of what we're doing. And you think even little old me in Phoenix, Arizona, they're watching, following. This episode is brought to you by Vaulted. Launched by McIlvaney Financial Group, with Vaulted, I literally just tap a button and boom, I own physical gold stored in a professional vault. Vaulted is currently giving away $30,000 in real gold to one randomly selected winner. I feel like not enough people know about this. All you have to do to enter is follow Vaulted app on Instagram, tag a friend on their giveaway post. Each tag counts as an entry. The winner will be selected on March 12th. This is the only time tagging your friends in a giveaway might actually pay off because someone is about to win $30,000 in gold.
Actually, what foreign intels usually do, and in this case, I think Israel is a leading force in gathering information, data. What they do basically, for example, through X and other social media platforms, and X specifically because it's an active war zone, basically, of narrative information, they collect data, they filter it through AI, and they come to a few conclusions to see the public opinion, where is it heading toward, for example. On the other hand, this data could also be used in deciding who is actually challenging the Israeli narrative in this case. Of course, some of these people who are challenging Israeli, let's say, narrative are small outlets, smaller accounts on X, but it doesn't matter for the Israelis because you're already listed on the list of the people who they consider them hostile, and they watch and follow the growth of this and influence of this person and his account, and sometimes they hit it through bots. If it's a smaller account, they send these bot farms to the account, they report it, and they take it down. This week, one of the pro-Palestinian accounts, I think his account called Junior or Juvior, they have taken it down after he received SMS messages from actually Israeli accounts telling him that they will take his account down. It's just a matter of time, and they have sent a farm of bots to him. This farm of bots also, unfortunately, they decide the conversation on X because you don't know who is real and who is not, and they are, for example, very much active on the account of Riza Pahlavi. Like you can see the account of Riza Pahlavi is not only boosted through the algorithm of X, but also there is a countless number of bots under his posts and videos.
Who, Kevork? Who?
Riza Pahlavi, the so-called crown prince of Iran, whom I call the clown prince of Iran. Even Haaretz, they have made an investigation and published it, and they said the majority of the people who are interacting with the account of Riza Pahlavi on all social media platforms were actually Israeli bots. They're not even real people. So these things are very, in my opinion, normal and normalized nowadays on social media platforms. So the smaller accounts, they hit it through reporting, but the bigger accounts, for example, people who are already known, people who it's difficult to really take down their accounts, for example, they spy on you. They read your interactions, your communications, to the extent that nowadays, according to an investigation done by Mint Press, it's a very reputable and very important website, in my opinion. People should follow it. They have made an investigation that the people who were verifying their accounts on X. So you have two types of verification, right? You have the verification that you get this blue check mark, but then if you want to monetize your work, you have to send them your ID, or you have to send them your driving license or any government issued paper, so they would verify that you are a real person. And the company which verifies these accounts is an Israeli firm. So these people who have recently verified their account for monetization, they were reporting that their names, their full names, were actually being Googled in Israel. So after they verified their accounts on X, they noticed that their names started to be Googled in Israel itself, and those accounts are actually pro-Palestine or anti-Israeli accounts. Now, when it comes to our communication, right, I think even without Israel, any person who has a smartphone that is operating an Android or an iOS, everything you read, everything you send, even if you use an encrypted apps, they are able to read everything. You remember Tucker Carlson a few years ago, he wanted to do an interview with Vladimir Putin, and he received a message from someone from the CIA telling him that they know that he's planning on interviewing Putin. So they aborted the mission because they were reading his Signal, and Signal is an encrypted app. Nowadays, thankfully, for those who want more security, there is an operating system called Graphene OS. So they can Google it. It's called Graphene OS. And this is only operated on Google phones, because the Google phones have higher security patches. I'm not an expert in the hardware. However, one of our good friends, Richard Medhurst, he has recommended me this operating system, and it works perfectly on Google phones. And you can basically hide your identity. You can also select and determine every single security, let's say, detail on your apps, to the extent that you can blind basically the other side from reading your messages and understanding what you're doing. So yes, this is really just a normal thing. All the bigger countries do it, but I personally do not actually fear if any other country around the world is spying on me. I just only fear Israel, because Israelis have shown that they have the mentality of weaponizing this type of spying. Let's remember the former head of Mossad recently, his name is Cohen. He was on a podcast bragging about compromising smartphones, bragging about compromising electronics, and he brought the example of the pager attack in Lebanon. And the host basically asked him, like, is this all around the world? And his ego all of a sudden came out, and he said, yeah, all around the world. We compromise electronics all around the world, including booby tapping, which means explosives inside our electronics, basically. And this is basically what on podcast, and they were talking about it as if it's something very normal for them.
Well, what do you think would happen if you attempted to go to Israel right now? Would they even let you in?
Actually, technically speaking, because I'm Syrian, I'm not allowed to get in Israel. I mean, even if I want to go to Palestine, let's say if I want to go to West Bank, I want to go to East Jerusalem, I don't want to visit Israel. Technically, there is no way. You have to land in an Israeli airport, or you have to pass through Israeli checkpoints or security points if you want to come, for example, from Jordan, and they would not let me in. They would not let me go to Palestine. They would not let me go to Bethlehem, where my ancestors used to go there for during the Christian holidays and Christian Easter, for example, for prayers. They used to go from Aleppo all the way to Jerusalem. And I remember not my father's and mother's generation, because back in the day, my father's and mother's generation, already Jerusalem was occupied by Israel, but the generation before them, they used to have tattoos on their shoulders here, written the day and the exact date, the year and the month and the day of their presence in Bethlehem in the church when they went from Aleppo to there. So it was like a Mecca for them. And unfortunately, since 1967 occupation of the rest of Palestine, basically by the Israelis, we were unable to go there. So if I go there, I would be definitely not allowed, even if I carry, in my opinion, in the future, let's say if I carry a second passport, let's say European passport and American passport, I would be definitely detained and turned back to and sent back to wherever I came from. There is no way they're going to let me in.
So it's following your work, and now we've spoken multiple times, and again, I can't thank you enough for you always make yourself available for me. But you look at this stuff, look at the events that have led to where we are now, and starting with October 7th, and correct me here if I'm missing something, October 7th. Then you had the pagers in relation to Hezbollah. You had the assassination attempt in Qatar, fall of Syria, and here we are now in Iran. I didn't think where we're at now. I didn't think this would happen because it's looking to be, as it sits today. Today is March 11th. Get my dates right here. March 11th? Yeah. Or no, it's 10th.
Yes.
March
11th,
11th.
actually,
Excuse me.
today. Yeah.
Because it looks like a mess, a disaster already. So that's why I didn't think this would happen. And I also thought that the midterms would factor in the United States and they would not go ahead with it. In my opinion, I don't think they even care about the midterms anymore. So I mean, as we're looking at this kind of build up, this campaign, where does this go now?
So all the events you mentioned were correct. There was only one event prior to these very important events, was the assassination of Qasem Soleimani. And Qasem Soleimani was the highest ranking commander in the IRGC. He has led the anti-ISIS and anti-Al-Qaeda operations in Iraq and in Syria. He has pushed back ISIS from Sinjar, from the Kurdistan area, from Iraqi Kurdistan region, and he also saved the Yazidis from the genocide there. He fought also in Syria, in Aleppo, in Deir ez-Zor, in Damascus, in different places against these Jolani al-Qaeda forces. And he was very, very successful in his anti-terrorist, let's say, operations until he was assassinated while he was on a diplomatic mission. He was mediating between Iraq and other country. Basically, he was not even there as a military personnel, and his trip was declared and in open. It wasn't like it was a secret meeting, and they killed him. I think that was the start of the preparation for a war against Iran. That many people said that this type of assassination shouldn't really pass by without serious retaliation in order for Iran to reestablish certain level of deterrence that Americans and Israelis would not dare to assassinate their top commanders. And then, as you mentioned, October 7, of course, Iran had nothing to do with October 7. This was not planned by Iran. This was not executed by Iran. It wasn't even funded by Iran. Hamas is funded by Qatar. And Netanyahu allowed the funding of Hamas in the Gaza Strip because once you have, let's say, a more Islamic resistance compared to what the resistance used to be in the past, which was left-wing, anti-imperialist, communist, socialist, nationalist, they have changed the character of it, or they have allowed, after assassinating all the leaders of the left-wing and nationalist Palestinians, for more Islamic group to come to the surface, right? Because once you have an Islamic group on the surface, Israelis can easily say, those are terrorists, and we don't negotiate with the terrorists, and you kill the two-state solution. And that's how they went to this very brutal, barbaric war against the Palestinians, not against Hamas. This was a war against the Palestinians because they wanted to destroy them in part or in whole, which is the definition of a genocide, because they wanted to kill the two-state solution, right? They wanted to kill any hope for the Palestinians to have any statehood there. And then it moved to Lebanon, the pagers attack, the assassinations against the leadership of Hezbollah, which I believe Hezbollah was the most important ally for the Iranians. And the people were shocked and saying why Iran isn't retaliating in a massive manner to restore deterrence because their allies are being killed there. And once the assassination of Nasrallah happened, this had a domino effect on Syria. A few weeks later, they have ousted Assad. And now we have a puppet government in Damascus affiliated or embedded with the CIA, the MI6, the MIT, the Mossad, to the extent that last week the MI6 asked the MIT, basically, the British secret services asked the Turkish secret services to increase the security of Jolani because they are afraid of an assassination against him. So this is how much important Jolani is for the British and for the Turkish and for the American intel. People were like, why Iran withdrew from the scene? Like, what they're doing is this is leading to the crumbling of the axis of resistance. And many people, including myself, I have harshly criticized Iran's, let's say, strategic choices in the region because I come from a position of someone I don't want to see also Iran to be destroyed, like my country is destroyed, because I believe that these wars are against these nation states, against their civilizations, against their history. It's not necessarily against what they call a regime. So I knew that if Iran loses its frontline deterrence capacity, meaning in Lebanon, in Palestine, and in Syria, then the war will move into Iran. It's just a logical thing because the Israelis are determined to destroy Iran. Now, the American side, Trump, he preferred something like Venezuela, like you can replace someone with another and you say we made a victory and we're dealing with a new leader. And when the Iranians refused to compromise, they killed their leader. And this is not simply a political leader. This is a spiritual leader. This is a revolution, the supreme leader of the revolution in Iran. And he is one of the highest Shia authorities, religious authorities in the world. So what happened is they thought that killing the head, hierarchy will crumble. But and this is something very, very important for your respected audience to know. I truly believe that the advisors of Trump have no clue about Iran. They don't know what Iran is, they don't know how Iran operates, and they don't know anything about what they call the regime. Because in Syria, the political system was it was authoritarian to the extent that it was mostly based on one person. So once the head was gone of what they call the regime, the rest of the hierarchy has collapsed. But in Iran doesn't stand on one person. Iran is a nation state. They have built state institutions. It has different pillars which stand on, and by killing the head, the legs stay and still functions. And this is what happened, that they killed the head, and then you have the IRGC, you have the regular army, you have the popular support there for the Islamic Revolution, plus the people who reject the Islamic Revolution, and they live inside Iran, but they know, because they have a collective political consciousness in the past decades, being under sanctions, being with war with Iraq and conflict in the region, that this war is against their nation. So the people increasingly stood with the government in Iran, even the people who were rejecting the Islamic revolutionary ideals in this case. Forget these people in the West, in America and in Europe, very minority monarchists who go to the streets, and all the mainstream media are there to record them and document what they're saying. But there are huge Iranian diaspora, especially on the left, saying, no, we have seen what you guys have done to the Palestinians in Gaza, and we don't believe that you're here to free us. We believe that you're here to destroy our country, and we put our differences with our government aside, and now we stand with the country and with the nation. And this is something, in my opinion, was missing in Syria. Syrian people have fallen into the trap, and they believe that the Americans and the rest of the regional countries are here to help them and support them. And now they have fallen into the trap that they have become basically pawns for the Americans. Now, whether I believe that the war was going to happen or not, when the negotiations started, I said the war is not inevitable because there was no military build-up in the region. There was no enough aircraft carriers or Air Force or Tomahawk missiles enough to bring down a country like Iran. But then all the reinforcements deployment started to the region, and I said now, I think that Trump is not bluffing and he is going to go to war, although me and you and any rational person believed that he shouldn't go to war. And this war shouldn't happen because it is unrealistic, and it will lead into economic crisis that Americans and the Europeans cannot really handle. And the Iranians knew it. Iranians do not have a Samson option. They don't have nuclear weapons, but they have something more important, that they can choke basically the global economy, and they can skyrocket the energy prices, and they could harm basically these economies. And this is what they have done. All the military retaliation is something, and then the economic measures in the Strait of Hormuz is more painful to Trump in the US and also in Europe. I mean, I hope I can invite you now to any gas station here. People are crying on the gas stations. The liter of fuel, diesel, not even the benzene, the diesel is today 2.2 euros per liter. And on the highways, it's 2.8. Like, we're talking about crazy, almost €1 more expensive per liter than it used to be before the war. So I don't think the people can handle this longer. And that's why, if you notice now, the Americans and the Israelis want a ceasefire with Iran, and Iranians say, no, sorry, we're not interested in a ceasefire. What we're interested is in a new security architecture for the region, the same way the Russians did in Ukraine. They said, we want a new security architecture, meaning all these American bases in the region, in Saudi Arabia, Oman, Bahrain, Kuwait, Qatar, UAE, they have to withdraw, or they have to dismantle all these spying and offensive weapons against Iran. They could leave their defensive weapons, but offensive weapons against Iran should be taken out, because those are considered frontline bases against Iran itself. That's why Iranians are hitting these bases very hard during this discourse of the war.
So many things you said I want to ask you about. First of all, in terms of the Ayatollah, I mean, that was their pope. I mean, they killed the equivalent of their pope. So, what you said about the country now uniting, I was going to ask you, because it's 90 million plus population. Mm-hmm. When we spoke previously, there was a I don't think you said percentages. I don't even know if I asked you, but there were people within the country that did not want to live under Muslim law, Sharia law, right? Sharia law?
Yeah.
What do you think the percentage is now of people that before there were people that did not, they wanted a regime change, or they wanted it to be moderated or modified. What do you think it is now? How much has it changed?
We don't have exact numbers from Iran. This is just
but
my
if you had
speculation.
To guess, if you had to guess,
I think if I have to guess, I think the Iranian Islamic Revolutionary Government enjoys at least like very loyal 20% base in Iran, right? And you have many people who are, let's say, reformists. But they're also part of the government. They are the government nowadays. It's not the hardliners who are in power. They are the ones who won the elections, the last elections after the killing, which I believe was an assassination of the former president of Iran himself, when he departed from Azerbaijan coming back to Iran. And then they said this was a helicopter crash, and then he died with his foreign minister. So they did new elections, and then Pezeshkian came to power, and the people of Zarif came to power. And these people also enjoy probably 30 to 35% of popularity there. So they're part of the government. So you have a wide spectrum of 55% of people who are either loyalists or siding with the government now in this war. And then you had the people who were rejecting, let's say, to live under an Islamic rule. But once the bombardment of the country started, and the bombings are against the infrastructure of Iran, they're bombing electricity grids, they're bombing basically schools, killing 180 children. Most of them are underage girls, basically. And they have water pumps, fuel storages. So those are all for the Iranian people. Those are not for the IRGC. And once you start hitting people's infrastructure and people start suffering, more people will support their government, in this case, in Tehran, compared to what was the situation before that. And this is something, unfortunately speaking, many people in the West do not understand, because they don't know the mentality, the culture, the value system of the people in the Middle East. For example, when you assassinate someone like Ali Khamenei was 83 years old, 80 plus something years old. So in my opinion, the correct thing to do is to let this guy grow up and in his probably mid 80s or late 80s, he will pass away. And even during this time, I'm sure he doesn't enjoy the same, let's say, mental strength compared to what he used to be 30 years ago, right? Like he's an aging man.
He's old.
And he's old, and he could die anytime, right? I think if the Israelis wanted to get maximum benefit from this, they should have let him grow up and become more, let's say, incapable of leading the country. Instead, they killed the person, they made him a martyr, and in the mind of Ali Khamenei, it is better for him to die as a martyr at 80, 83 years old than to die as an old sick man on the bed. Like, these people aspire and they wish for martyrdom, something that many people do not know the concept of it, because we, for example, do not really sacrifice our souls for the religion. This has something that is very old concept that we have basically overcame, that we're no longer people dying for their religion in Christianity, but people die and sacrifice themselves for the religion in Islam. So what you did, basically, you made this man a martyr. His name will be mentioned in history. And then the people who used to see him as a father figure or grandfather figure, they have gathered around the flag even further. Plus, you brought someone like his son in this case. And by the way, this is something very important. I will explain it later, because some people say this is meritocracy, etc. No. His son is 30 years younger than him, more revolutionary, more hardliner, and you killed all his family. You killed his father, you killed his mother, you killed his wife, you killed his children, you killed everyone in his family. So this man now has 30 years of no one to serve but his country. He doesn't even have family any longer. You killed everyone. And about the meritocracy, the people think that this was something that was like inheritance. And this is not the case in Iran. Ali Khamenei himself, in his recommendation, he recommended against his son. He didn't want his son to take over the position. But in Iran, you have a small council of very high-level religious experts, and those people are not like uneducated person. Those people receive the highest degrees in their religion, and they sit and they discuss and they elect one person among them, and they have elected him. In the previous election of Ali Khamenei, there is a famous video of him sitting in this council of experts, and this is taped. They don't release it. They just release it now after he was killed. And he was disappointed to be elected. He didn't want to become the supreme leader. And he said, like, he doesn't deserve this position. Like, he is not worthy of this position. And this is a big responsibility that exceeds his capabilities. But he took over because he was elected back then, and now they elected his son. And this was, I think, this strategy of decapitation has really, it has become like a blowback now, and it's counterproductive. What they have done, in my opinion, for Iran, they have shown that they have very little options in Iran, and the military option has failed. They can no longer topple the regime. In fact, they're asking Iran for a ceasefire agreement, and Iran is rejecting it. And now they are in a really deep trouble of how to limit the scope of this war. The Americans are telling the Israelis, stop bombing Iran's fuel depots, because now they're going to bomb our fuel depots in the region. So I think this is the first war since World War II. If your audience can correct me, maybe I'm wrong, but this is the first time since World War II I see that the United States has and Israel together have received such a strong blow from any regional power, let alone a superpower, because Iran is not even a superpower, it's just a regional power there. But they have been planning for it for 40 years, and they have executed the plan in a great manner that many people were surprised, including myself, because I myself didn't believe that Iran can survive this, and I was proven to be wrong.
So to me, I look at all this, obviously from way on the other side of the world. I don't think they can stop it at this point, right? Because how can I mean, they had to war game this out to understand what they were getting themselves into.
I mean, look, today I was reading few articles, and this one is from the New Republic. It says Trump went to war with Iran because Jared Kushner is a fool. And yesterday, Donald Trump said, based on what Jared Kushner told me, I thought Iran would attack us. It's quite clear that he received some false intel as well from his advisors, including the ignorance of his advisors, Jared Kushner and Witkoff, on the nuclear issue. What are the credentials of Jared Kushner and Witkoff when it comes to enriching uranium? Do they really know the differences between the types of enrichment and the types of processes that Iran is going through to either generate electricity or go into nuclear bomb? They don't know all these things. Imagine that Witkoff, this week he said something that is so funny. He said, quote, I wouldn't tell you I'm an expert in nuclear, but I have learned quite a bit and I have studied it and have read quite a bit about it, and I'm competent to sit at the table and discuss it, and Jared Kushner as well. Probably he went on ChatGPT and asked him about his opinion on the Iranian nuclear program. I'm very serious about it. This type of incompetence can lead into disasters like the one that we have now, because I spoke to Professor Jamal Wakim the other day on my show, and he was one of the people who really made me understand geopolitics when he was my boss back in the day. This was 10, 12 years ago. And he always said in every interview, it is illogical. This war is illogical. It makes no sense. America shouldn't go to war, and I don't believe America will go to war because what we, the analysts, basically how we foresee the future is we have the factors and the timing and the conditions in the region. Everything said that this war shouldn't happen. But then the unreasonable and illogical thing happened because of few factors. One, of course, the advisors of Trump are fools, and they are more pro-Israel than pro-America in this case, especially Jared Kushner in this case. Second, the influence of Bibi Netanyahu over the foreign policy of America, it's enormous. It is so dangerous. Imagine there is a clip of the father of Riza Pahlavi, the Shah, and this was probably in the early 70s on the 60-minute show, American show. And they asked him about the Israel lobby, and he said, well, the Jewish lobby has very big influence over the American foreign policy that is not going to serve their own interests, the Jewish interests, the Israeli interests in this case. And this is what happened basically because Netanyahu felt like he has scored victories in Gaza and in Syria and in Lebanon, and he wanted to complete this with a strategic victory in the region that would allow him to establish the Greater Israel Project that would extend from the Nile to the Euphrates. And this is a serious thing because the only power, Arab power or Islamic power from Morocco or Marrakesh all the way to Malaysia, Indonesia, the only power that is standing between, only state power that is standing between the Greater Israel Project, the establishment of the Greater Israel Project is Iran. So they wanted to knock it out and bring the Shah to power, who is very pro-Israel. And then the entire region would be under what many observers nowadays call the Pak-Judaica Empire. So I think this was the Netanyahu plan, and this was Netanyahu's own project. And I wouldn't say his own project. Probably we have other people above him, like the Rothschilds and the BlackRock and many other multi-trillionaire banking dynasties. who have encouraged him to go to this war against Iran. And in this case, let's also remind your respected audience, because some people may come and say, no, this Greater Israel Project is just an illusion. Well, recently, when Tucker Carlson sat with the U.S. ambassador to Jerusalem,
Mike
what was
Huckabee.
his name?
Mike Huckabee.
Mike Huckabee said it is fine for Israel to occupy between the Nile to the Euphrates. And this is the map of the Greater Israel Project, which includes parts of Saudi Arabia, parts of Iraq, 2/3 of Syria, Lebanon, Palestine, the entire Jordan, and all the way to the Nile in Egypt. And he said,
is Turkey part of that too, Kevork?
yes, in the area called Kilikia, back in the day, this area used to be mostly inhabited by Armenians, Assyrians, Chaldeans. They have completely either genocided them or ethnically cleansed them during the Armenian genocide via the Ottoman Empire, and all these people fled to Syria. This area also is under the Greater Israel Project. And then Huckabee said, yeah, but this is not convenient now. It's not the right time. But in the future, he said, if Israel comes under attack by these neighboring countries, then if they occupy these regions, then it's fine, right? So this is not something that is, in my opinion, theoretical. It is practical, although it is based on ideological factor. It's messianic. It is, in my opinion, it's a heresy. It is something anti-Christian. I say it as a Christian myself, that this Christian Zionism and the evangelicals and these Zionists in Israel have made a pact together to do what? To fasten the second coming or the coming of Messiah. Like even in the Bible, the humans cannot really make these prophecies come faster. This is a natural, let's say, development of the events. What they're doing is basically they are jumping over these stages in order to bring what? A Greater Israel Project, a Messiah again. I don't know. In my opinion, this is just a distortion of our religion, and it is heresy, basically. They're fooling us to our faces about this, and they continue telling us that we have to bless Israel to be blessed. This is not, this political entity is not the Israel that was mentioned in the Bible to begin with.
How at this point then is a regime change possible without having troops on the ground?
It's not possible. And it boots on the ground, Trump is bluffing about boots on the ground. It's impossible. It is, if America wants to, if Donald Trump wants his country to not only become secondary power, but a third world country, then he would send troops on the boots on the ground to Iran. Have you seen the map of Iran? Have you seen the geography of Iran? Have you seen the hillish and the mountainous areas in Iran that are all full of air defenses and missiles and bunkers under the ground? Iranians would be happy to see American forces coming there. They would. This would create the conditions that would lead to America no longer staying as a superpower in the world, not even secondary, it would become a third world country. The Russians would be happy to see them entangled in Iran. The Chinese would be happy to see them entangled in Iran. Everybody would be happy, those who want a multipolar world, for America to drain its resources there. But as I said, this is a bluff. He knows it's a bluff, because to occupy Iran, which has the double size of the population of Iraq and Afghanistan combined, plus 5 times more military power only when we're talking about the number of the soldiers there, I think he will need between 500,000 to 1 million soldiers to send to Iran to occupy it. You know better than I do. Do you think that it is an appetite for sending 1 million troops to Iran?
I think, and I've gotten hammered for this, but in my opinion, I mean, the country, the majority of this country does not support this. And Somebody else I had on was saying, I think it was roughly 3 million soldiers they would need, but even at 1.5 million, I don't think we have the infantry prepared to do that today. So how long would how much preparation and how much time would it be to assemble these forces? And what parent is going to encourage their young son or daughter to get involved in this at that point? I could be
I,
wrong, but
no, I don't think you're wrong. I don't think you're wrong. I think it is possible to send, let's say, 100 to 100,000 soldiers. Probably you will find enough people who enlisted and they need the money to go. But then once the killing starts there and once you start receiving the bodies of the killed soldiers in bags back to the United States, once they're piled, I don't think that is going to be a factor that plays in favor of a ground invasion theory in this case. I truly believe that America is not going to invade Iran or send boots on the ground. And if I'm wrong, I will come and apologize for it. But again, those are all based on what we say the logical factors, right, in our hands. But if there is something serious against Donald Trump through the Epstein files, and if he's going to burn down the entire house for it, then it would be an unfortunate thing for the Iranians and for the Americans. But logically speaking, I don't think that there is going to be an invasion of Iran through ground forces. It would be so disastrous for the Americans that the fighters will definitely, who are already in Iran, they will discourage their peers in the United States, especially the families in this case. And how long also America can sustain this type of war? They spent how many trillions of dollars in Afghanistan? They will need triple or four times more that money in Iran. So economically speaking, also it makes no sense for the United States. This is the limit of the American empire. They have reached their limit, and they tried now with Iran, and they have to take now one step back and compromise because now the Russians are winning in Ukraine, and now Iranians are winning in their own country. Now imagine what the Chinese could do in Taiwan if America tries to start another conflict there. I think if once they withdraw from the scene in the Middle East, especially in Iran, the Russians and the Chinese will have a great relief in their own countries because this will set new rules of engagement and new balance of power on the global scene, and everybody will understand that the U.S. Army is not invincible. It is you cannot defeat America as a military power, but you can hit them a great blow that would hurt them a lot. And in this case, the Iranians have hit them economically and militarily.
what am I reading about? Well, so two questions. One, do you envision this going on for for a while, or do you see Trump declaring some type of victory, quote unquote, and pulling out?
There are indications now from the U.S. that they want to withdraw, and the 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 goals they have set for themselves was too high. The regime change, revolution, bringing back the Shah, and Abraham Accords for Iran, Greater Israel Project. All these things they couldn't manage to achieve one of them with Iran. So listen to what Trump says now. He says, we destroyed their air force, we destroyed their
Their navy.
their navy. So we made them toothless. And then Marco Rubio comes and says, like, our goal is to make sure that Iran cannot fire again against us or against our allies. So what happened to the regime change war? Say already they're coming down off the ladder slowly. And I think now the Iranians know it, and they are rejecting negotiations now with the Americans. It is now in the hands of Iran to decide how long this conflict could go. And Iran is basically telling the mediators that they need new deterrence measures and they need new balance of power for the region and they need a new security architecture, just like the Russians want from NATO in Eastern Europe. And we want to make sure that such attacks would never happen, not now, not in the future, which means this will lead into long-term negotiations. And Iranians, in my opinion, can perfectly stop the hostilities against the neighboring American military bases. But what they could continue doing is choking the Strait of Hormuz. And there are allegations and reports that those are just claims. I'm not sure about them, that they are already mining the Strait of Hormuz. They're only allowing Chinese tankers to pass by and Indian tankers to pass by, and because they need the fuel from Iran. So even if negotiations start, I think the Iranians will use the Strait of Hormuz as a pressure card until they achieve what they want to achieve in this case, and that is deterrence and new security architecture. If the Iranians withdraw from their demands, and let's say they have agreed for a ceasefire agreement without a new security architecture, rest assured there is going to be phase 3 and phase 4 and phase 5. They know it. That's why they cannot really tolerate a non-agreement, let's say, or an agreement that doesn't secure their national interests in this case.
Well, and how can you go back to business as normal after these thresholds, these lines have been crossed? I mean, again, I'm not a military analyst, but how is it possible?
It is not possible with Iran. I think Iranians are already living 40 years under sanctions, and their economy is already disassociated from most of the American and Western markets, and they're selling most of the fuel and gas to Asian countries. And some countries are finding alternative sources, markets. Yes, they would prefer to deal with the rest of the world and sell even further, but you have limitations for it, and unfortunately, you have lots of arrogance among the Western officials and incompetence. Like these two combined, it shows you the state of the affairs. Why the state of the affairs in these countries are becoming too dire nowadays, especially in Europe. That the European Union is completely silent when when a Tomahawk missile kills 180 children, and then when Iran retaliates, they sanction Iran. It has become too disgusting, let's say, and people are no longer buying the EU as a mediator or a middle power. They're just seeing it as a vassal to the US empire in this case. So the Iranians will definitely continue business as usual with the countries that they were already doing business with. And in this case, we have a very big market in India and in China. Like they're buying everything from Iran. Iran doesn't have to sell anything to the Europeans, but the Europeans need the fuel from Iran, and they cut themselves from the Russian gas and the Russian fuel. And now the European Union is they're begging Ukraine to allow shipments of Russian fuel to pass through Ukraine and come to Europe, because we completely cut ourselves from Russian, and now the Qataris stopped because of the hostilities, and Iran is no longer. So at the end of the day, as we say, some officials have to be humbled. And I think this is a great lesson of humbling for them, that there are limits for the arrogance and there are limits for what the military power can achieve. And they thought that they can just bring the entire world under their feet via military power. That's not how history works, And especially when it comes to an overstretched empire. You're talking about 800 military bases all around the world with trillions of dollars of debt inside the United States. There are limits for what you can do, And I think the powers who are opposing the American empire in this case, or simply want a multipolar world, they know these details, and they know the conditions inside the United States. And what they do basically at many occasions, they avoid the clashing with the US. They avoid the provocations of the US because they don't want to engage in a military conflict against an empire that they see is retreating in this case, right? So I think now the Iranian conflict is a great example for many other countries of two things. One, the limitation of the US empire and the necessity of retreating and new security architecture in the region. And second, and this is very, very important, it shows that the US bases in the Middle East, in Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, and all these countries, were basically not a source of security, but rather a source of instability for them, because now their countries came under attacks because of the presence of the American forces, these bases were used for attacking and offensive missions against the Iranians, although the governments in these countries, they told the Americans, we don't want to participate in this war. You forced us into it. And now voices from the Emirates, there is a multi-billionaire businessman at the Emirates, closely associated with the ruling family. His name is Haptur. He made a statement on X, and then he deleted it because probably somebody forced him to delete it in the Emirates. He blamed Donald Trump and he blamed Lindsey Graham and said, "What the fuck you doing? You brought us into war. We don't want this war. You didn't ask our opinions, and you're not defending us. You put all your THAAD batteries and all your air defenses in Israel. How about our countries? You're using these military bases to attack Iran or carry on this type of offensives against Iran. But we are paying the price for it. We didn't want it. We didn't want it, and now we are also suffering economically. And these countries cannot tolerate 2 weeks, 3 weeks of war. It's not like Iran. It's not like Israel. Those countries were battle hardened for a long time. The people in the Emirates, in Qatar, are minority. The Emiratis are minority. The Qataris are minority. The vast majority are foreign expats. They are entrepreneurs. They are oil and energy experts. You have the real estate companies. You have the banking systems. You have these crypto guys, influencers. They all went there to make money. But to make money, you need stability and safety. And if the stability and safety is gone, what do you do about it? You withdraw your businesses from these countries, or you flee the country, right? That's why you see the Emirates nowadays is paying lots of money to the influencers to post videos on social media platforms, including on X. And everybody all of a sudden comes, and those are famous faces with millions of followers. No, everything is all right in Dubai. Dubai is still safer than London. And then there is a drone flying over their head and hitting some hotel. No. People can see. And if anyone posts anything from Dubai of these attacks, they're being kicked out of the country completely. Their visas are withdrawn and they're being kicked out of the country. So the countries which built their economies and relevance in the region on the vision of stability and an opportunity for the people to come and make money, if you kill the vision of stability, then the entire country starts crumbling. That's why they're terrified there. And the Iranians know this very well. That's why they are mounting pressure on the Emirates, on Saudi Arabia, on Bahrain and other countries, because these countries have invested with trillions of dollars in the United States, and they have a say. They can pressure Donald Trump. So by putting pressure on these Gulf countries, you're basically putting pressure on Donald Trump indirectly. And that's what the Emiratis and the Saudis are doing nowadays. They're telling Donald Trump this war has to come to an end very soon. They cannot really continue because now Iranians are still acting let's say, with the rules of engagement. But if they feel that they are threatened and there is an existential threat, you know what Iranians could do? If they hit any of these water, what do they call it? Sanitation?
Desalination.
Desalination, yes, companies there.
The plants, the desalination plants.
Yeah. How many weeks can Saudi Arabia or the Emirates or Qatar survive, right? They will need airdrops of water. So it's a really dire situation. I don't think it's going well for the US and for the Israelis. But that's also good news for the people who would like to see a stable region and new rules of engagement, because what the Israelis have done in the past few years have enormously changed the people's perception about politics, about humanity, about many things. And people wish that Israel would be restrained, and it has to be restrained. Without restraint, then Israel will continue its expansion in the region.
They showed the airport in Dubai, people fleeing. You see those videos circulating, which you don't know what to believe with any of this stuff, right? Because I'm not there to see it, but
I have friends in Dubai. Some of these footages are real. and people are paying thousands of dollars for a ticket to go back to London and to Birmingham to other places in Europe. Some of them are just normal queuing because I've been to the Dubai airport once. It's too overcrowded. People are just running over each other. So it could be both cases, but for sure, many people do not like to live under such security conditions, because what makes someone leave his basically Western safe haven and go to Dubai, it's money and it's security. If one of them is gone, what do you make of the money if there is no security, right?
What you okay for a couple more minutes? Two things I
Yeah.
want to ask you. Three things, but they're fast. So what is the future then from in Dubai, Riyadh? I mean, I'm a big boxing fan. I know in Riyadh they've been trying to build up that sport, and others. The tourism, who no one's going to go there right now, but what's going to be the fallout from all this?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Actually, these countries have what they call economic vision for 2030. Saudi Arabia wants to host the World Cup. And what they did basically is bring lots of investment in tech, AI, sports, cultural events, comedy clubs. You remember bringing all these comedians from the US. But listen, this stuff are all not locally made. This is what people confuse in the region, including many of the delusioned Syrians. Sorry to say, those are my countrymen, but they're disillusioned. And what basically they think is when you bring American or Western investments in your own country, then you're developed. That's not the definition of development. If you are bringing tourists to your country by foreign tourists to your country by inviting foreign comedians, you're not bringing tourists. Sorry. Tourists are the ones who would like to come to your country and visit your country for what it has and what it offers, its culture, its music, its food, its cultural and historical sites. Those are the things that the people come to the Middle East for. But if you're coming to the Middle East to watch, for example, a boxing match, that the fighter is American and the other fighter is probably also American, this is not any local, it's not a local production. The same thing goes for the tech. They continuously telling us, oh, look how advanced they are, how much they have electronic devices everywhere and cameras. How many of them were produced in these countries? How many? The same thing is happening now in Syria. They killed the national economy. We used to export everything that we have in our country, right? We used to assemble cars in our country. Now we just import everything. So in any ways, they have tried to make themselves touristically relevant by giving this, yeah, look at us, we have nice musical events here. Not a single one of them is Saudi or Emirati. What kind of musical event is this if I'm coming to Dubai and then not a single Emirati person is performing and then the entire team is foreigners? The same thing goes for almost everything, because 80% of the population there are foreigners. So I'm not buying into this touristic thing of these countries. I would not waste a single penny of my money to go and do tourism in these countries anyways. I would go even to Jordan, that they have many touristic sites there compared to Saudi Arabia or in the UAE in this case. It doesn't impress me to see these long buildings. Show me rivers, show me nice shores, show me nature, mountains. Yeah, but what would I do there, in my opinion? Probably the only thing that they are really good at in touristic things is going to the deserts and camping, for example. That's nice. If you can do camping there with some fireworks, with some fireplace at night, doing some barbecue, etc., that would be great. But other than that, I don't see myself there. So in the future, this country's economic vision is very, very vulnerable, because it is dependent on other countries and not dependent on themselves or relied on themselves, because the only thing they are manufacturing and selling is basically what is coming beneath the earth, and that is fuel. If you don't invest this fuel and build schools, even the universities, like what is the universities? What are the universities in Dubai or in the Emirates? The same American and British universities with the same brand, but based in these countries. Where is the education? What education are they presenting to their own people? They're just importing even education from outside world. I personally, I'm a more sovereigntist maybe I'm an old school. I just like my people to produce, because once you produce your stuff, you are self-sufficient. You don't rely on other people. That is what development means for me. Like in 2010, we had 7 million tourists in Syria. We didn't have these long buildings. We didn't have these tall buildings, this nice AI and tech and technology and stuff. But 7 million people out of 24 million, we have 24 million residents in Syria. And then you have 7 million in 1 year coming tourists in your country. Why are they coming to your country? Because you have the touristic sites and attractions for the people to come and see, right? That's how I see.
Well, in relation to Syria, then, I was reading where ISIS is now helping fight. Was it fighting Al Qaeda? Or
Actually, ISIS, we have around 15 to 20,000 people fled the prison. Many of them are militants, and they disappeared. They disappeared in the deserts of Syria. So whoever made this happen, I'm sure they have a project. You don't just allow 20,000 ISIS to flee the prison and then don't chase them, don't even try to hold them back. It seems quite clear for me. I have argued and said my conspiracy theory is that these ISIS elements would, in the future, try to attack an Israeli forces inside Syria, and then the Israelis would say ISIS has re-emerged, and then we have to create even deeper buffer zone inside Syria and go all the way to Damascus. Those stuff are all, in my own opinion, manufactured. People have seen what ISIS has done to Syria and Iraq and how they destroyed our social fabric and our mosaic and our economies. And then it led to basically the regime change in Syria, right? And it was successful. ISIS was a great investment for whoever funded it. So in the future, I think ISIS will be instrumentalized again. You don't just let 20,000 people flee without really building on this case. And I think it's being cooked now behind closed doors.
the last thing is, I thought I read something where, is it ISIS fighting Hezbollah, or did they recruit an army from Syria now to fight Hezbollah, or did I read
So
that wrong?
what happened is basically because Syria is now ruled by this Al-Qaeda regime. The Israeli helicopters come from the Syrian Golan Heights. They enter Syrian skies, and they fly on the borderline with Lebanon. And then on one of the border intersections there with Lebanon, they landed with there were 4 helicopters. 3 of them landed, and commandos went out. 1 of them stayed in the sky. So they can observe the situation. And they tried to break into Lebanon using an ambulance, basically, car. They pretended to be medics, and they were in the ambulance car coming into Lebanon because they wanted to assassinate, or they wanted to capture and kill some Hezbollah fighters there. And Hezbollah and some local people. Those were not like official Hezbollah. Those were like men, women, young, everybody, whoever has guns and RPGs. And in Lebanon, almost everybody has a gun. They went out and they started shooting on the Israeli helicopters, and then Hezbollah intervened and they shot artilleries against the Israeli forces who were retreating and going back to Syria. And once they hit them, now the Al-Qaeda regime in Damascus says our sovereignty has been violated, and now we are preparing the proper measures against Hezbollah, and we support the disarmament of Hezbollah. And they're massing their forces on the borders. And Iran said if this Al-Qaeda forces and militants attack Lebanon to fight against Hezbollah, then they will receive a few missiles and few drones and kill their leaders. So I think in this case that would be a great news for the Syrians if Al Qaeda intervenes this war and the Iranians fire some very one of their fast missiles and finish this Al Qaeda regime in Damascus that is harming everyone. That would be great news, but we will see.
And the last question, the fallout from all this, I mean, you touched on it earlier, living in Europe and the prices of diesel. I don't think in the United States, Americans understand what the consequences are going to be for this war. Can you explain what you're going through right now and what Americans might expect in relation to gas price? And before you answer that, I mean, people don't take into account not only gas and fuel, but the stuff that comes into this country, the costs, shipping, transportation to get all this stuff here.
Yeah. Well, I will just give few personal examples for the people to understand the situation. Like, let's say before the Ukraine war, my electricity bill was 45 euros. And then after the Ukraine war, it increased and increased and increased, and it reached 210 euros. Last month, for this month, just during this war now with Iran, my electricity bill has become 140 euros. And fuel prices, for example, the diesel was 1.6 euro, sometimes 1.5 euro per liter. And now it is between 2.2 to 2.5 per liter. We're just talking about the diesel. The grocery prices increased between 30 to 35%. So the purchasing power has become less and less and less and less and less, plus new taxes all the time. I think it is not a place any longer for people who would like to build a future for them and for their families. Like, there is no person in what used to be called the middle class who can buy a house or an apartment any longer. You can't. This is financially, it's impossible. So many people are leaving. I mean, whoever I speak to, they're like, oh, I'm leaving to Spain, I'm leaving to Portugal, I'm leaving to Greece, to cheaper places. And they can also work remotely in these places. So people are also deciding for themselves. I think that's also great that people can have more flexibility nowadays to generate income. But all in all, when you go to a supermarket and you see the bill, like for two persons, I'm married with my wife, and we like to eat good food. Like, even in the supermarket, you have the good food and the bad food. Like, we like to eat organic food, and we feel better when you eat organic food. Unfortunately, those stuff are very, very expensive. Very expensive. Like, imagine they put nowadays alarm on the meat, on the products, because one piece of steak is like cost 20 euros. So
it's like a diamond. It's like a diamond.
It's like they put a lock on it and an alarm, so you can't run away with the meat. That's the situation.
Yeah, people in this country don't understand what I think is coming, and I think and I saw this yesterday on my feed. I think there's going to be lockdowns again, and I'm seeing it all over my feed. I saw it yesterday. I was like, and I'm bringing a friend of mine on tomorrow to talk about it more, but. I saw, like, all of a sudden it was like lockdown. Vietnam, they're encouraging people to work from home. You're seeing, it feels a lot like pre-COVID to me right now. Yes. What's going on?
I mean, these countries depend highly on Iranian fuel. So they've already reached the minimum level of what storage they have in their own country. So they're asking their people to sit home. For how long? That's why I say I don't think this war will go on from the American side more than a week. But the Iranians have no interest in stopping it. So means very, very painful concessions are expected from the American side.
And are they willing to do that at this point? That's the
That's the thing. That's the thing. Because there are many people, in the American establishment accuse their enemies of being radicals. Look at these religious fanatics. They're ideologues, and this is, I mean, excuse me. The other day when I watched these prayers over Trump's shoulder, I don't know if they know how the rest of the world are watching them, but we're watching it with horror. It's not funny. If they think this is a religious war, if this is some messianic mission, we're horrified by it, because this leads into unreasonable and unrealistic, let's say, and counterproductive policies like the ones they have done now with Iran. And it hurts Americans, it hurts us, it hurts everybody, because politicians are meant to make decisions based on interests and what is possible and what is not possible. And if you do something that is impossible to achieve, then you harm yourself and you harm the rest as well. So I hope the Americans truly grasp that we are horrified watching them talking about religious wars, and this is some sort of a crusade against the Middle Eastern people. It shouldn't be seen like that way.
Kevork, where can people find you?
Thank you very much, first of all, for having me again. It's really a pleasure to be with you. I'm doing my daily live show on my YouTube, Syriana Analysis. I'm also trying to post one article per week on Substack under my personal name, Kevork Almassian.
For people that are listening, I encourage you to go on to Kevork's Substack, support the work that he's doing. Is there any other place that people can support you financially and what you're doing?
I'm on Substack and I'm Patreon mostly. Patreon is my Syriana Analysis YouTube name, and if they come to my, let's say, any of my shows on YouTube, I put all the link in the description below for people if they like to support, but only if they can and if they want. There is not everything else is just for free.
I'll put, obviously, like before, I put all the descriptions in the show notes. Kevork, as always, thank you for doing this. I look forward to continuing to follow your work and more conversations ahead.
Hopefully. Thank you so much.
Mic drop.